This is New Rural Virginia, reclaiming rural leadership through conversation featuring real voices, real issues from the heart of the Commonwealth. Hey y'all, welcome back. You are listening to New Rural Virginia podcast. I'm Parson Brown.
And I'm Larry Wohlers, and we are your long absent podcast host. We've been gone for a while, Parson.
I know, what do we call this? Was it a hiatus, a sabbatical? We took a break.
We were out for training.
Okay, well, you know what? That's not untrue. And you just got back from overseas. How was that?
My wife, has family in Europe, right? We spent a whole month over there, got to see a lot of family, a lot of 4-hour dinners. That's what they do in Belgium.
Right.
Which isn't exactly my thing, but, you have to go with it, especially if the food's good, right?
I was about to say, I'm sure the food was great.
Oh, yes. But the other thing that's nice about it is, because it's family, we get to talk to a lot of regular people, not just journalists, and not just what you see in the paper.
They got regular people over there. I'm just kidding.
at least in my wife's family, anyway. And it was going great, and then we had a big shock, right? The attack on Iran came right out of the blue for everybody, and of course they were asking me a lot of questions.
I'm sure. What was that like?
Well, they were pretty shocked, pretty unhappy, not because they liked the regime in Iran, nobody does,
right?
But because this war has a huge impact on people in Europe. A lot of their oil comes from the Gulf, and the war's a lot closer to them than it is to us, and that this sort of came out of the blue. They weren't given any say or any warning.
Right. Well, not that the American people were
either, right? And I think they're also pretty worried that there doesn't seem to be a plan B, and worried that having created this situation, that President Trump might just decide to go home and they'll be stuck trying to figure out how to resolve things, right?
Right. Now, maybe there wasn't even a plan A. This doesn't seem, there's a lot that can be said. I think we're all still trying to figure it out.
Yes. Well, and, that's a topic for a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what we were doing. Fascinating. Meantime, you were over there in West Virginia, right? With Alliance for Appalachia. Tell me about that.
I had the pleasure of attending the Appalachian Studies Association conference, which this year was at Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia. The Appalachian Studies Association is this great collaboration of folks from academia, art, activism. There's something for everybody there, and it's held at a different university every year throughout Appalachia, which of course spans from Georgia up through New York and Maine. It is headquarters in Marshall University, so that was a really great experience. It's just a wonderful place to absorb knowledge. I got to go to a presentation about the importance of Appalachian rural libraries, which of course our last guest, we talked about Samuel's Public Library in Warren County, and so it was very nice to hear from them, and that we're not alone in the world when it comes to preserving and protecting libraries. But I was there.
Right. And you brought some great guests with you.
I was invited by the Alliance for Appalachia, who I've spoken about before. Some great folks. And brought some guests back with me.
Yeah, you have talked a lot about this alliance, and I know it's been something important to you, but tell me just a little bit more for the benefit of our readers. Where did it come from?
I'm from the Shenandoah Valley. I'm certainly an Appalachian. I'm a mountain person, born and raised.
Okay.
But when the Alliance for Appalachia, when we're talking about that portion of Appalachia, we're talking about central and southern Appalachia, Southwest Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee primarily, who are dealing with extractionist issues. A mountaintop removal, coal mining is where now is what actually prompted the creation of the Alliance for Appalachia. And though I certainly consider myself an Appalachian person, being from the Shenandoah Valley, we have different issues. We do not have the fossil fuel extraction issues that they face there. And we were presenting about engagement and legislative strategy and how we interact with our representatives to help frontline community members who are impacted by mountaintop removal and extraction throughout the region and environmental justice issues. And so that leads us into our guests today are Lyndsay, Deitrick, and Laura Miller, who are two good friends of mine and associated with the Alliance for Appalachia. We're so glad to have you here.
Absolutely. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Lyndsay, let me start with you. You know, I'm from a part of Virginia that's definitely rural, but definitely not Appalachia. Many of our listeners will be surprised to learn that a quarter of Virginians actually live in counties that are part of Appalachia, and something like one half of rural Virginians do. So that's a big deal, right? And it's something that all Virginians need to understand a lot better. So I'm looking to you. Tell us a little bit, about yourself and where you are in Virginia and about the Alliance, and just give us the scoop.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Lyndsay Deitrick. I actually grew up in rural East Tennessee, but now I live in Franklin County, Virginia, which, according to political lines, is one county outside of the politically drawn Appalachia. Appalachia is a culture. We are a lifestyle. We are um, a community that I think really resonates with mountain communities. And the Appalachian Range goes from Georgia all the way up through New York.
Right.
I definitely consider myself Appalachian, even if I'm not within that, that political border. So I live in Franklin County. I live in the woods with my family. My husband, who is an Army veteran, he was in the infantry and he still works with veterans today. And we have 2 young kids that are 3 and 6 years old. But we're here today to talk about my work with the Alliance for Appalachia. Our mission is to support our 20 member organizations in communities impacted by destructive fossil fuel extraction. And our work in this coalition is founded on 4 core beliefs. And everything that we do is based in these 4 beliefs that I feel like really resonate across the board, whatever party you're a part of, wherever you live. Hopefully these values resonate with you. So I want to read them out loud here. 1, we believe that mountain people are experts of our own lives. We believe that all people should have a seat at the table in determining the future of our communities. We believe that regional collaboration strengthens political power built locally. And we believe that systemic change is necessary to achieve justice in our region. So in practice, we're a coalition that comes together from communities across the Appalachian region to share our experiences, to take action together on issues that are important to us. Primarily, these issues are related to environmental justice, and in rural areas, that looks like protecting our communities from dangerous practices like mountaintop removal, coal mining, things like fracking and pipelines that are related to oil and gas infrastructure. So we'll get into it more, and our work definitely goes beyond those 2 industries, but that gives us a starting point.
And how long have you been around as an
This is our 20th anniversary, so 2026 is a
Yeah.
big day for us because the coalition was founded 20 years ago. We're really proud of that. I have worked with the Alliance for 10 years, and before that, I was a volunteer. When I was in college, I met SOCM, Statewide Organizing for Community Empowerment. They're based in Tennessee, so I was a member there. And then I was also a member of the Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition when I moved to West Virginia. So it's pretty neat that we span 6 states and folks can stay involved in the coalition as they move across the Appalachian region.
Yeah, that's awesome. Laura, you have actually been involved with the Alliance almost since the beginning. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what got you involved in the Alliance and some of the issues that are motivating you in your community and what motivated you to take action.
Sure. Thank you, Parson, and thank you for having me. Let me start by saying that I first got involved with the Alliance through Southern Appalachian Mountain Stewards, which is one of the member organizations of the Alliance. In fact, it's one of the founding organizations.
Right.
From 2006. I got involved in December of 2007 and actually joined in the summer of 2008. And the initial thing that got me interested interested was industry. Dominion Power wanted to build a coal-fired power plant in my area, not in my particular town, but very close by. And Sam's really got engaged and committed to trying to stop this power plant. And I will say that although we were not successful in stopping it, what we did achieve was they had initially asked for a permit to spew out, I don't remember if it was 72, 74, 76, but it was one of those numbers, pounds of mercury per year.
Whoa.
Yes. Well, we got them down to 4. From 70 something, we got it down to 4.
Was that particulate matter? Or
Mercury. It was mercury. Yeah. And so although we did not win the big fight on that one, it was certainly a victory. And this is going to sound like an oxymoron, and it kind of is, but that particular plant is the cleanest coal-fired anywhere. So that was what we won out of that particular fight. Now, I have been an environmentalist since the very first Earth Day in 1970.
That's awesome.
And in the early aughts, I was living in New Orleans, and I was living there during Katrina, Hurricane Katrina. I did evacuate, but that's where I was living. Although I did, at that time, also have my home in Wise, Virginia, which is where I am now. I was living in New Orleans, and I had a roommate renting out my house because I wanted to be in New Orleans. That's just a fact.
Sure.
And so when I came back to Virginia after the storm, I felt like I was coming back to a safe place because we're not going to get hurricanes here. And of course, this was before Helene. And now we do get hurricanes here.
Right.
Climate change and all of that. But that was part of my motivation. It was just like, I thought I was coming to a place that was safe. And I realized, then I found out about mountaintop removal. It's like, nope, not safe here either. So it was time to gear up and start becoming organized and getting involved in the local issues here. I have been in politics and an activist my entire life. My profession was in theater, but I've always done activism on the side. And so it was natural for me to just keep doing that in this particular location, which is where I do own a house and live. I've got many, many friends. I have lived here since 1995, so just over 30 years.
Laura, would you mind, just for those that don't know, giving an overview of what mountaintop removal coal mining is?
Sure, no problem. They call it strip mining on steroids. What they do is they will go in and they will literally blow up the tops of mountains, getting rid of rocks, dirt, what have you, in order to get to very thin seams of coal. They do this because it's the most economical way for them to get at that coal. It also means that there are fewer employees, there are fewer quote unquote miners doing this work. So they have lower labor costs, and they go in and they make a huge god awful mess. And we have to fight tooth and nail to even get them to clean up partly what they have done, but it's extremely destructive, and it leaves huge gashes on the land. The landscape is just dreadful where it's been taking place, and they're very sneaky about it. They will do it out of sight, so the people driving through the area, if you're on the roads, you're not going to see it as a general thing. They're hiding it. However, one of our earlier member organizations called South Wings, it's a group of pilots who do environmental tours. And so you can go up in one of their planes and really see destruction and what's happened.
I had the opportunity to fly with them one time, and it was truly impactful.
I have actually never flown with them, but I have taken people 2 flights, and these are folks that have come into the area to learn about mountaintop removal and to learn about Southern Appalachian Mountain Stewards as it happens. And they've come off of those planes just stunned. It is so emotionally overwhelming.
We had our camera. It's really nothing that there's people that have beautiful, oh my God, not beautiful, but like very illustrative photos that really capture it, but there's no lens that can really capture what you're looking at. But it's a devastating sight.
Right. So I've got a question for either Laura or Lyndsay. You're an alliance of a number of different organizations, and my understanding is one of your roles in being an alliance is to have greater weight in terms of going to the federal government or perhaps going to the state government to be able to get your views known and to fight back against the powerful lobbies who are trying to influence laws and regulations to let them do what they want to do, right? Does that am I right there? And is this principally about coal mining, or do you have other issues that you're fighting for?
Well, yes, you're principally absolutely right. That is exactly why the Alliance came together. We started out just focusing on mountaintop removal coal mining. So that was our initial issue. But we have expanded since then to include other extractive industries such as fracking, gas, and we are now also fighting nuclear and data centers because those are other issues that have come up more recently. But yeah, the initial push was against mountaintop removal coal mining. And we distinguished between underground mining. Now, a lot of our individual people are against mining in general, but the organization is not. Absolutely not. In fact, a lot of our members, particularly in the early days, were former underground coal miners who were absolutely appalled at the mountaintop removal method of getting at the coal.
Well, because it's sort of it exploits not only the land and the water and ecosystem, but also kind of takes the miner, it reduces the amount of miners from the equation as well. So it's really not a job creating system. Right. It's just for profit.
Yeah, it's job destroying. Actually. Yeah.
And is it hard to get your views heard and acted on in Washington and in state capitals, given the amounts of money that the big corporations can pour into lobbying there?
Yes, it is. But we do have our victories, and we're going to keep fighting. One of the main things that we really want to do is to get our message across to not only the government officials, but also the communities. So the folks on the ground know that we are on their side and fighting for them.
Lyndsay, could you maybe enlighten us a bit on the federal team? Because there's a few components within the Alliance, but specifically where I participate with y'all is on your federal strategy team and working on legislation and bringing folks from frontline communities to talk to representatives. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, our federal team is made up of folks like Laura and Parson that are members or volunteers of our member organization. So like I mentioned earlier, we come together from across 6 states to combat the dangers associated with coal mining and other extractive industries. This includes addressing the legacies of these industries too, like polluted land and waters, because the mining company might get all that they want from the coal seam, but they've buried the stream. There's perpetual pollution. The communities are still impacted. And like we mentioned at the beginning, they can up and leave, even though there's laws on the books that say they need to clean up, clean up.
They're very talented at, working their way and navigating loopholes in those laws too.
Absolutely. So our federal team organizes for a healthy environment through regional and federal campaigns. We advocate for and defend key water protections. We try to improve regulatory oversight, because a lot of times what happens is there may be a federal law on the books, but then it's up to the state Department of Environmental Quality, Department of Environmental Protection. They go by different names across the region. Each state has a different, but basically the state environmental agency is who's often responsible for regulating the laws that are on the books. So we try to promote beneficial legislation and coordinate around federal rulemakings, rule changes, policies, permits. And this is our charge, regardless of which party is in the White House or which party is controlling Congress, or what the federal administration is prioritizing in any given year. Some years we're on the defense. We're safeguarding the laws or trying to preserve the funding that's already standing. And some years we are pushing for more protections or trying to gain ground.
And that evolves. My experience, we started during, George W. Bush's administration. So this group this body has been doing this work through multiple presidential administrations, and it changes. Obviously, we're in a completely different place than we were 20 years ago, but a lot of the same issues and more.
Right. In that respect, one question I have is, obviously most of those representing your areas in Congress are Republicans, but Republicans tend to be against more regulation, and you have Democrats who are more likely to be favorable to regulation, but they're not in rural areas, they're in urban areas. So is it hard to get either side really focused on what you're asking for different reasons?
Absolutely. It's a challenge regardless. But I mentioned some key values that the Alliance for Appalachia really bases our work on. And one of those is about valuing our personal experience as our expertise. And so when we're talking to representatives, again, regardless of which party they're part of, we try to talk about, this is how this is impacting me, my family, my community. And all of us that participate might be coming in with a particular organization affiliation. But again, we're parents. We're veterans. We are community members. We drink the water where we live. We shop at our local grocery stores. We are members of our community too.
Right.
And we value clean water and healthy ecosystem as fundamental human rights. And we feel like those are great drivers of the economy, even if you can't tack a jobs number onto them. And so, in the Alliance, we believe in fighting for what's right. And a lot of times it's being able to tie our personal experiences to those broader legislation. Or, for example, where I'm living in Franklin County, we're facing shortfalls in our public school system. They
Right.
have a live survey right now asking us parents, what would you think of a 4-day school week? This isn't because they, want kids to be outside playing more. This is because there are shortfalls in the budget. Because
The budget, yeah.
Yeah, because the healthcare costs for personnel are going up. And because we're getting less education funding from the state. Again, that's impacting us
Sure.
to what our party status, but we can take issues like that and tie it back and say, this is why we don't need investment in more data centers. This is why, we see the connections between we shouldn't be subsidizing the electric company because we already can't afford our basic services. And so trying to tie together issues like that will hopefully resonate across party lines.
Yeah. Well, in that sense, one of the reasons that people have tended to support continuing coal mines despite the environmental effects is that's been the only place where good jobs were, right? So what is the Alliance thinking about how it can shape and help cultivate rural prosperity in the region that would go beyond coal mines?
Absolutely. And I would put good jobs in some air quotes.
Right.
Because
Yes.
those were also jobs that give people black lung.
Well, that's true.
Those are jobs that are backbreaking and extremely dangerous as well. So good jobs is relative,
Yeah.
And but when we're advocating for cleaning up abandoned coal mines, for example, we point to the job numbers that creates too.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so, we think that accountability for polluting companies, like cleaning up our waterways, will promote economic tourism, for example. And so, we are working for prosperity, but maybe not in the sense of we know exactly what kind of economic development project to put in. It's more about listening to what communities want, because the Appalachian region, sure, there's themes, but we're not a monolith, and each community should be able to speak for themselves in terms of what we think is going to help us.
Which circles back to the beginning of our conversation, that people should be empowered to take care of their own communities, to have the resources to do their own thing and make their own decisions. And that's certainly real in Appalachia. So the federal team specifically, I am part of the federal team because we go and lobby Congress, we talk about these issues. But I was wondering, Laura, if you might be able to kind of like sort of expand a little bit and let folks know what we do. A week in Washington where we bring folks from frontline communities to lobby Congress to talk to their representatives. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that process, and you've been there through the years. So
sure, I'll tell you. First of all, the week in Washington it's a wonderful trip, and I've been doing it since 2009. And the only time that we have not done it was during the pandemic for obvious reasons.
Sure.
But other than that, I have gone every single year, starting with 2009. And initially, we would have a day of traveling to D.C. because we're traveling from all over the region, and some of us are driving. And where I live in Virginia, it's actually an 8-hour drive to get to D.C.
Yeah.
People think of Virginia as being next to D.C. And certainly part of it is, but then there's my part. So we have a day of travel, and then we would have a day of training. We are always trying to bring in new people to expand our network and our ability to really talk to people. And we also want more of our community members to be aware of what's going on so that they can then go back to their communities and continue to engage with more and more people on the issues that we care about. So there's a day of travel, a day of training, and then several days of lobbying where we go to various congressional offices, and usually we'll visit with the staff. Occasionally we will actually get to meet with representatives, particularly some of our own representatives. And it was pointed out that a lot of our own representatives are not really on our side. They are more aligned with industry, but they do at least listen to us because we are constituents. We also go to various agencies, such as the Environmental Protection Agency and others that are pertinent to the work that we're doing. We used to often visit with the Office of Surface Mining and Reclamation. We visited with them numerous times. So the way that generally works is we would call ahead of time and set up appointments with both the agencies and the congressional offices. And then once we are in D.C., we would put up a list, of sheets, one sheet per visit. And the sheet would have the information of the office that we're going to, the name of the congressperson or the senator whose office it is, the person who arranged for the meeting, in other words, got the appointment. And then people could sign up for whomever they might want to go see and visit with. And we always want the folks to go to their own state people. For instance, the Virginia people would always go to our congressperson and our two senators. And the same for Kentucky, West Virginia, what have you. All the states would do that.
And to put it into context, 20 years ago or 19 years ago, 18 years ago, there was a time where we had over 100 people at the week in Washington. So when she says sign up on a sign-up sheet, that was because it's a bit smaller group right now as it is, but it used to be a substantial amount of people.
Right.
Yeah. And in fact, people came from all over the country to support us. People whose Congress people, for instance, were on committees that had direct impact on the things that we were trying to get done. They would come in as a constituent to ask their person to support us. And we would be there to tell the stories from Appalachia and from our particular communities. And we got quite a bit done doing it that way. And it was that way for a chunk of years. And I'm not sure why that changed, honestly. I mean, I lived through all of that, but I wasn't we all start out in the beginning not knowing exactly what's what, and that's what the training takes care of, so that everybody can be on the same page when we actually go into these offices. Another thing that the training includes is role playing, as if you were doing an interview in one of the congressional offices, and this is to give our people confidence, because
people don't know how. Like, it's not like they teach in high school or in your everyday life how to lobby Congress, and that's what was so beneficial about this. What happens there
exactly
in Washington.
Yeah, right. And sometimes we will do demonstrations in addition to the other things that were mentioned. We are always peaceful, always peaceful.
Right.
Although sometimes we will deliberately break laws in order to get arrested, in order to make a point. And we've done that a couple of times. But again, it's always peaceful. And when I say break the law, what I mean is we will be sitting there, for instance, in front of the White House gates, and they will ask us to move. And we will say, no, we are not moving. And so the people that refuse to move are the ones that get arrested. And they have planned this ahead of time. And they don't resist arrest. They don't do anything other than not move when they are asked to move.
The professionalism of what I've witnessed and documented with, anyone working on those issues with this broader group, just so there's no confusion. It was appalling to see like January 6th, because there's just so much training and awareness and thoughtfulness into what any of these bodies have done when they do actions. It's not, it was like just it was contrary to everything that I'd ever witnessed and believe in when I witnessed the January 6th. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, good point. Exactly.
Two things strike me about the our present day situation that I guess are going to make your work more challenging. One is this vastly increased need for energy thanks to data centers and AI, and so it's going to be harder to close down some of these more polluting energy plants. But then the fact that this administration and our president seem to idealize coal mining, right? It's for Trump, it seems to be motherhood, apple pie, and coal mining. And that strikes me that this is a more difficult environment for you guys when you be going to Washington. Is that fair? And do you, on the other hand, I guess it also means that there's an even greater need for what you do than was true in the past.
I think you're absolutely right. It is more challenging. I remember going to D.C. in 2016 and seeing that Trump building. And at the time, this was in the summer, and nobody really thought he was going to get elected. We were repulsed and disgusted with his campaign, but we really did not dream that he would actually end up in the White House. But I tell you, I think that's one reason that it's so good that we have 20 years under our belt. We started out, as I believe Parson mentioned, with George W. Bush in the White House.
Yeah.
That was not easy. That was not an easy time. The first week in Washington that I did was right after Obama came in, and the people that had been doing it for the 2 previous years kept talking about what a different atmosphere it was and how much more pleasant everything was. And certainly the Obama years and the Biden years were easier. Not that they were easy, because as has been mentioned, there are always going to be challenges. But yeah, it's a different atmosphere. But at this point, honestly, we're kind of used to it, and we can handle it. And I think we look on it as, okay, this is a challenge, but hey, we got this. We can do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. It just speaks to like the important nature of building sustainable relationships and sustainable organizational infrastructure that can withstand the whiplash from administration to administration. And when we're talking about fossil fuel industry, they are huge. They are controlling the government in so many ways. Republicans, Democrats, independents, they're infusing money across the board. They're controlling the agencies across the board. And so we're looking at systemic change.
Right.
And that really goes to the long term. This is long haul work.
Yeah, definitely.
This has been a fascinating discussion. And let me just say, as somebody not from Appalachia, thank you for what you do. This is important work that you're doing.
Well, thank you for your interest and your support by letting us do this. This is excellent.
So, Lyndsay, if you wouldn't mind, how can folks learn more about the Alliance for Appalachia, the member groups, and there's another week in Washington coming up this summer. If there's anybody that might be interested in that, how can they learn more?
Yeah, please visit our website. It's theallianceforappalachia.org. That's all spelled out, theallianceforappalachia.org. And one of the first things that will come up for you is an invitation to sign up for our newsletter. And that's a great kind of first touch into our work. You'll see news from our member organizations. You'll see the ways that we participate in broader movement spaces, and you'll see invitations to upcoming events as well. And I really think, today we focused on the Alliance for Appalachia's federal team. That's just one component of our work. So if you check out our website and join the newsletter, you'll see many other aspects of work that we do.
Thank you all so much for joining us. I appreciate you very much, and I will see you in DC.
Absolutely.
Can I add one more?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say out loud that in fighting for our communities, we fight for all communities. And so we come together to connect people of all backgrounds and identities. The Appalachia is made of Black folks, Indigenous folks, poor and working class people, people with disabilities, queer and trans people. And these relationships really help us understand the ways that an injury to one is an injury to all, and that our liberation is bound up with each other from Appalachia across the globe. And y'all started this podcast talking about the war in Iran. And I just wanted to remind people that those weapons are being built right here with fossil fuel resources that are extracted, transported, processed, and the waste byproducts are dumped right here in our Appalachian communities. In addition, those weapons are increasingly tied to artificial intelligence and data centers. And so at a time, when scientists are telling us that we're in a climate emergency, wars like this are keeping us locked into more extractive industries that perpetuate climate change. So I just kind of wanted to bring it back home because I feel like it's really important to continue to connect these issues. And this is a huge reason why we started out wanting to end mountaintop removal coal mining. We absolutely still want to see and are fighting for an end to mountaintop removal coal mining, but it's just impossible to only work on that because of the ways that it's connected across the globe and across a number of industries. So thank you for letting me hop on that soapbox first.
Yeah. But what did we say at our panel? Solidarity isn't just a word, it's a lifestyle. So thank you both very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, y'all. New Rural Virginia podcast. Conversations about rural Virginia's future is a product of New Rural Virginia. Visit newruralva.org for more. Please like, share, subscribe, and follow us. We're available anywhere you get your audio. For deeper dives into the topics we cover, catch additional insights and stories on the Rural Angles Substack newsletter. This program is produced by Larry Wohlers and yours truly, Parson Brown. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode.